Hi, everyone. Just letting you know that we're starting at 2 p.m. sharp. Thanks so much.
All right, everyone, good afternoon. We're going to get started. We're at the top of the hour, and hopefully by now you've been able to get on to the webinar meeting client okay, and you're seeing the presentation and you're seeing me. So we're going to get started here. And first I'm going to do just a little bit of introduction and housekeeping, and then we'll jump into the presentation. So by way of quick introduction, my name is Mike Vozas. I am with Amazon Web Services, and I am one of our collaboration leaders in the U.S. public sector business. With me virtually, we have a team of folks that are going to help us conduct this webinar. I also want to briefly introduce Jason Schaefer. He'll be helping to answer any of the questions you all have. We're going to run through the entire presentation first, and then we're going to open the line for Q&A. And if you'd like, you are also welcome to post your questions in the Q&A dashboard and the web console that you have on your screen, and we'll also take those from there, and then we'll also open the call at the end for questions. So those are a quick couple items on introduction. Everyone's going to stay muted until we get to the point where we get to the Q&A, and then from there we'll get started. I will mention now there's going to be a survey. We always appreciate the feedback. Your feedback helps us make sure we bring the right content and the right speakers to these calls. So just a quick plug for that. And then finally, and I'll mention this again, this is the AWS Public Sector Webinar Series, and there will be, these are hosted monthly, and you will see another one of these in about a month's time regarding our marketplace products. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started and jump into our presentation for today. We appreciate you all joining and taking the time to be with us. Today's topic is on some next generation innovation that we're bringing to our customers around the contact center space. So we're going to talk about a solution we have in Amazon Connect and some of the auxiliary services that we bring to bear to really deliver on that next generation contact center experience for our customers, and we hope that it's something that you can take advantage with your customers. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started here today. So today's experience challenge, let's set the stage for what we're hopefully going to solve for. So today's experience challenge, it certainly has changed. Contact centers have been around for a long time, many decades now, and what we're finding is that there's an opportunity with technology through the web to create new experiences, new and better experiences. And we want to talk about, what are we seeing? Or say the phone number associated. And I had a little demo there. I'm going to move past that. It doesn't translate well on video here. So the customer challenges that we see today are a couple-fold. First of all, many customer contact center experiences are static and unintuitive, where you call in and you may get an opportunity to press 1, 2, or 3 to get routed to a certain place. It's not personal, though. It doesn't really know who you are. And so, immediately we're stuck having to ask you, who are you, when we pick up the call and have to interact with you. And there's no context. There's no information. So typically our agents in this environment struggle to be effective immediately because they're collecting information from the customer before they can even begin to work on the problem. I know everyone on the call has probably experienced contact centers as a consumer. So many of you have seen this where you call into a contact center and you input your information into the IVR, into the automated system, but then eventually you get handed off to an agent. And how frustrating is it to have to repeat that same information? So that's a challenge today that we see in many of our customer contact centers. I would mention that not only are we potentially frustrating our customers, we're actually also frustrating our agents. They themselves pick up the phone and they have a frustrated customer. They're missing key points of context. And in some of our customer contact centers, we see that there's high attrition at the agent side because the experience is poor for the agent. And from a job and performance perspective, that has an impact. So those are a little bit of some of the challenges we see in this space. So I want to put a what if out there. What if we could bring to the table a solution and set of technologies that create a personalized and consistent experience? What if we could bring a contact center solution to the table that actually anticipated customer needs? What if we could optimize agent utilization better? What if we could change the role of the agent? What happens if we allowed our agents to work on our customers' most pressing problems and stopped having them answer simple, FAQ type questions that they sometimes have to deal with? And ultimately, through technology, what if we could increase our capacity to handle customer requests by 5 times? So that's the stage we want to set for what can we do with these next generation technologies and tools. And I believe we can address many, if not all of these, and make a positive impact through some of the capabilities we have here at AWS and with Amazon Connect. So our goal is to deliver experiences that are simple, intuitive, and frictionless for our customers and for our agents. So let's jump into a little story. I think here at Amazon, we're very customer obsessed, customer centric, and I wanted to start by telling you a story about what we experience here in our own business. So our .com or Amazon.com retail business is a massive business. It today has millions of customers. We support dozens of languages across 32 countries. And as you can imagine at Amazon, we have a very seasonal business. So we will have, an average day, and then when there's a high retail time, for example, on Amazon Prime Day or during the holiday shopping time, we have to ramp up because we have a lot more business and there's a lot more customer service requests that come in. And so for us, we will scale up to 70,000 customer service agents across the globe in those high season times to support our retail business. So that's our environment. That's what we think about when we go, how do we support customers? What kind of technologies do we need to effectively deliver an amazing customer experience? And a couple of things are really important to us from the perspective of delivering that great experience. We believe that the platforms that are needed are to be scalable, they're to be open, simple, and reliable. And if we can have a piece of technology that is all these things, we believe we can iterate and have an amazing customer experience. So our problem, by the way, historically has been that classic contact center technologies were a challenge in this environment where we have seasonal surges in our business. We would go from typically 20 to 25,000 agents up to 70,000. And so how do you do that with classic ACD technologies? The tools were very cumbersome. We had difficult integrations. If you can imagine, for those technical folks on the line, you have to integrate the ACD into the PBX and have all the telephony interfaces, and all these components come together to work. And it's a real challenge when the environment needs to be dynamic and fluid and able to scale up and down. A lot of professional services was required, and so that made it challenging for us. From our perspective, the fact that you had to place, let's say, a phone on a desk to turn on a new agent was alone just a challenge, because then we had to interact with PBX and get that done. Security and scalability and reliability are always important, and so making sure we have that ability within the platforms that we build. And then lastly, excuse me, I got my screen in the way. So those are the things we think about from the marketplace that are a struggle for us. And then complex pricing. So, if you want to add agents for just a short period of time, that historically was not the way that these ACD technologies and contact centers were sold. The perpetual license, you had to buy for your max use case scenario. You had to maintenance that solution for that whole time. And so this was a real issue for us. So what we decided to do, I should say, is we built our own contact center. So it's a software-based piece of technology. We've been using it now for over a decade in our own Amazon.com retail business. And a couple things to note. It's an easy-to-use cloud-based contact center. It scales to support our business in the average times and the high times. And it's a tool that grows with your needs. First and foremost, it's a skills-based routing piece of technology. So it is classic ACD function. It also incorporates classic IVR function, or the interactive voice response technologies. We do all of our audio call recording within the platform. We create and have a lot of data for real-time and historical analytics. So classic contact centers have a need for quite a bit of data and analytics, and so we bring that to the table in our platform. And we did one other kind of unique and neat thing here. In the interest of getting away from having to use desk phones and hard phones placed on desks for agents, we built in a high-quality soft phone client so that you could launch contact center agents from a laptop or PC and a headset, and no need to deploy additional PBX phones to get additional agents online. I should mention you can use hard phones and PBX phones as a part of your integration, but they're not required, and the soft phone is a nice way to have those seasonal workers or those individuals that are going to work from a remote office or a home office. So a couple of things I'd like to point out about what makes the Amazon Connect technology so unique in the marketplace. First and foremost, we're leveraging the AWS cloud infrastructure. So everything we're delivering here is a platform as a service or software as a service. And that's important to note because we've eliminated the need to have any of these technologies deployed within your premises. There's no need to deploy hardware and servers. There's no need to load operating systems, applications, security patches. That's all gone. Effectively, you come to our AWS console at aws.amazon.com. You set yourself up with an account, and from there, it's delivered as a platform as a service through a web GUI interface. So self-service configuration is one of the strengths of the solution, ease of access to the technology, and ability to quickly create the solutions you need. And I'm excited to say, and this is so many of our customers are starting to see this, we take what typically has been months of just getting the platform up and running and have put it into minutes. And some customers kind of laugh when I tell them that we can turn on a contact center in approximately 15 minutes, but it's true. And for anybody on the line that would like to see that, we'll be able to take you to a call offline and show you kind of how that works. The next thing I'll mention, and this is really important from an end user or an end customer perspective, we create a lot of dynamic, personal, and natural contact flows. So now that we're in this web services era where all of our applications are typically web-enabled, one of the things we do really well with Amazon Connect, and it's one of its strengths, is we take the contact center and we allow it to interface into all of your data applications, your CRMs, and those apps that you have for your customer information. And in doing so, we can provide a dynamic, personal, and natural contact flow. So when your callers call in, we can identify them through various mechanisms, like maybe their phone number, for example, and can quickly say, hello. We can, say hello, their name, hello, Mike. Nice to see that you've called in. How can I help you? We can understand that maybe they've placed an order with us recently, or they've had a piece of business with us, and we can jump right to that, that conversation piece and say, I see you recently placed an order. Is that why you're calling? So we can make it much more dynamic and personal. The other thing we do is we take advantage of our natural language capabilities. So for those on the line that maybe have Alexa at home, or you've seen a commercial with the Alexa experience, that same conversational capability that you have with your consumer products, we bring them here and allow your business tools to have that same experience. And what's great about that is we're moving customers off of the old press 1, press 2, press 3 IVR prompts and giving them a more intuitive and natural experience, which really drives customer satisfaction in a positive direction. And I have a little flow here just to kind of make the point. So imagine if I had a customer call in, and I could dip into my CRM and I can dip into other data applications and know immediately who it is. I can see that maybe in the case of this airline example that Nikki Wolf called in and her flight was canceled. So I can presumably know why she's calling, and she can say, "Yep, I just want to rebook my flight," and we let her know that there's same flight tomorrow is available, and she can be booked on that flight. And we do all that through the automated tools. And what's great is first of all, it's an amazing customer experience. But second of all, it stops this call from having to go to a live agent to be served. So for simple interactions, we can help create more efficiency in your contact center and save your agents for those really difficult, challenging customer interactions that require the human touch. Okay, the next thing I want to touch on, and the third strength of Amazon Connect, is our open platform. So, like so many services at AWS, we build them with APIs, or application program interfaces, and this allows for the Connect application to interact with other applications you may have within your environment or in the cloud, so that you can create points of synergy between one application and another. So we have that functionality built in here. We also have other Lego, I call them Lego pieces, but they're basically other components, and I'm just going to show them here real quick, that allow us to bring a more robust nature to the tool set. So imagine, if you will, we take Amazon Connect and we create a contact flow that works with your CRM tools. We have a capability called the Amazon Lambda, and Amazon Lambda is it's a serverless technology, but basically it allows you to execute code in small discrete kind of, if you call it a data dip out to another application. And you don't need to run specialized servers anymore. There's no need to run CTI integrations. You can just leverage this technology, and it's very inexpensive and it's very efficient. And in doing so, we can create all these customer interactions. From there, we have our soft phone that may be tied in directly with the CRM technologies. We can record the calls and move them to our S3 storage. I mention this because so many customers want to record their calls, but it's a challenge because of, first of all, those technologies are historically expensive. And then secondly, those technologies, when you store your audio on site potentially with your ACD, space becomes an issue, because over time there's only so much hard drive space you can keep or have. And so by putting this in the cloud with unlimited storage capacity, as well as probably some of the most inexpensive costs for storage, it's a great point of scale that we have, and it's something we bring to bear as a part of our building blocks approach. Quite a bit of metrics I mentioned. So classic contact center environments do rely on the metric-driven capabilities. So we have that, and we bring it to the table. And then lastly, we take a lot of the agent data and are able to bring that into the fold. So last thing I'll mention is we do, as a part of our open capabilities, we do integrate with so many of the contact center technologies that are out there in the marketplace. So you have, from a CRM perspective, many of the major players that you see here: Salesforce, ServiceNow, as a couple to mention, Zendesk, where if you have those technologies, we will just simply integrate into them through various adapter technologies, and make sure that the agent experience is uniform and consistent, and that what they're seeing is the technologies are going to be in any ways to service that customer. We have quite a bit around workforce management, optimization, and quality management. So again, if you're in the contact center space, you may know some of these names, but these are the folks that help optimize the business of contact centers. And so we have a lot of points of integration with them. And then lastly, on the third column here on the right, what you're seeing is our ability to work with some of the analytical engines. And we have some ourselves, and then there's some of these here that I'll mention where what you get is a new level of insight into your business. And I will likely demo one of these here at the end. So you get a new level of insight into how are we doing with our customers, and being able to analyze that level of data and information. Okay. I do want to make a quick mention here. So in addition to technology partners, so those partners that create integrations with their technologies and ours, we also have and are working to build an extensive group of consulting partners. These are folks that are purposely trained with Amazon Connect technologies. I should mention this list is always growing and changing, but effectively these are the companies, the value-added resellers and systems integrators and consulting firms out there that have competency in Amazon Connect and can help you with your journey to the cloud with your contact center. Okay, I want to close the conversation from a presentation perspective with kind of the value prop and the takeaways of what is Amazon Connect. And I'm going to start from sort of right to left. So I've mentioned a couple times, this is a platform as a service. This is also known as a software as a service delivered from the cloud. And so the need to have data centers and hardware and space, those days are gone. We've made it really easy to get access to technology. Because it's served from the cloud in a multi-tenant fashion, we have automatic scaling. So for those customers where your use cases might be seasonal in nature, I know we have customers right now that are in the disaster recovery space, or using the technology for disaster recovery, or using the technology to help scale up for short periods of time in the year. This is a great way to get access to contact center technologies without making a big capital investment. Along those same lines, and typical to so many Amazon services, there are no required commitments or contracts. You simply need an AWS account. You can go to the console and gain access to this technology. The no-hassle telephony. So there, again, if you want to tie your contact center to hard phones, and that's typically a organizational preference, to whether or not they want to have a hard phone, you can. But for so many of our customers who want to start moving to soft phone technologies, we have that as a core capability here. It's pay-as-you-go, so all of this capability is delivered as a service, as you need it, only when you need it, and there's no required commitments, contracts, or needs to spin up, any sort of expense other than when you're using the technology. And this last item here, I kind of want to speak to because it's so different than what we've had in the contact center space. So the Customer Connected Minute, think of that as the new atomic unit by which we align cost to your usage. So I may have mentioned at the beginning, so I myself have been in the contact center marketplace and space here for about 20 years. And historically, contact centers were large capital expenses that were costed out in terms of there was hardware, there was the software, there was licensing for the agents, there was port licensing for the IVR and the number of calls you could take, et cetera, the PBX itself. And you had all those costs to kind of contend with, as well as operating costs, electricity and the telco costs were usually operating costs. So in this new world, with this technology delivered as a service, the Customer Connected Minute is the new unit of measure by which you align cost to the usage. So to make the point and to kind of tell you the example, if I have a call into my contact center, and maybe that caller is sitting in my IVR doing self-service, maybe they're sitting in music on hold waiting for an agent, or perhaps they're talking to an agent. In those scenarios, we will have a charge for 1 minute of usage. It's anywhere from 2 to 3 cents a minute for U.S.-based contact centers. That's dependent on if it's a DID or toll-free number. And that 2 to 3 cents a minute is what's charged per caller when they're in the contact center. So to make the point and to be a little dramatic, if you have 100 agents logged into your contact center, but there's no calls coming, there are no charges. So this is really powerful because for probably for one of the first products in the marketplace in this space, you have a solution that truly aligns your costs to actual customer usage. So very powerful, and it's new and it's different, so we don't mind taking some time to explain it and walk through it in more detail. But that's sort of the value proposition of this technology in particular here with Amazon Connect. I did want to touch on some of those use cases we're seeing. And this is a public sector call, so I definitely want to make sure I highlight specifically where I'm seeing it with my customers. So I mentioned that the seasonal and rapid communication needs. So natural disasters where they happen, right? And here we are in hurricane season, and so many organizations spin up capability to meet the needs of those individuals impacted by disasters. And so we have a great piece of technology here that can help you turn on hotlines and add capacity to your existing contact centers. For many of my not-for-profit customers who have fundraising campaigns, this is a great way to have technology ready for those couple of days a year you do fundraising, but then again, not have to have it dedicated for a full year. And in SLG, I have many of my state and local customers who manage and maintain voting capabilities. And in that, this is another great example of where you don't have your infrastructure up and running the whole time. You set up hotlines for the 30, 60 days before and shortly thereafter the voting period, and gives it it's a great way to just have some way to touch your customers and your constituents for that small period of time that you need. Some of the other use cases that we're seeing from our customers more on a permanent basis are a couple fold that I'll mention on here. So first of all, many of my local and county customers have 311, which is information hotline for your residents. So for example, you can call and find out what day your garbage pickup is, or you can call and get the address for local and county facilities like your library and courthouses. And so this is a great use case because it does two things. It gives you that contact center functionality. And for so many of my 311s where 100% of the calls are still answered by an agent, this gives us the chance to add some automation. And automation is where we can handle a customer call without having to give it to an agent. We can answer simple questions, FAQs, or even use that personalized capability to take information like zip codes and addresses and give back specific details there. I am seeing quite a bit of capability in healthcare, both for our healthcare customers that are aligned to sort of university hospitals and also county hospitals. And something as simple as an outbound dial function where we can remind patients of appointments, that they have the next day or the next week as a simple use case. And then lastly, we are working, I should say, AWS employees. We're working to help some of our, typically it's at the county or state level with benefit support. So, usually at the state and county level, you have administration of federal benefits like unemployment or SNAP card. And so something as simple as renewing an individual being able to call in and work through a quick Q&A to reconfirm that they're still unemployed as an example to continue to receive benefits. We're moving that off of an agent interaction and moving that more to an automated IVR-based interaction with natural language. So these are just some of the use cases you're seeing out that we are seeing and that we would be glad to help you with. I kind of want to close with a great story just to bring this to life for everyone. So as an example of just the unique capabilities here with the Amazon Connect platform. So about exactly a year ago now, we had Hurricane Harvey hit in the Gulf Coast area. And not the only, but one of the many organizations that helps respond is the American Red Cross. And in last year's hurricane season, they delivered 414,000 overnight stays. They supported individuals with 4.5 million meals. They delivered 1.6 million relief items, things like toilet paper and toothpaste. And they helped over half a million households in the first 2 months. But unfortunately, last year's hurricane season was rather severe. Within the first 45 days of Hurricane Harvey hitting, there were 5 more hurricanes that came through. And what this did to the Red Cross was effectively, it was a deluge. It crushed their call center capacity. It was a real issue. And they did not have enough technology in place, enough ACD capacity to handle all the calls. So they gave us a ring and asked for some help. And what we were able to do, AWS in partnership with Voice Foundry, which is one of those consulting partners, we were able to kind of, hear the call, hear the concern. Within 48 hours, we had the technology completely up and running to support additional agents. We were able to bring volunteers and corporate sponsors and volunteers onto the calls. All they had to do was bring a laptop with a web browser and a headset, and we had additional capacity up and running within 2 days of the call to help the American Red Cross fulfill their mission. Amazon employees were taking calls. We had capacity on our end to do that. And we operated for 2 weeks this incremental capacity on behalf of Red Cross. And then as soon as the call volumes, kind of slowed down and became more in line with the usual run rate business, we were able to deprovision the technology. So really powerful story of being able to flex up to the needs of the mission and then bring it back down and decommission it, once we were done needing that capability. And I left the web link in there there's a blog out there that kind of talks to it from the AWS perspective as well from the customer's perspective. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. One of the things I'm going to do in our last couple minutes is I do like to show the capabilities of Amazon Connect, just kind of give everyone a quick look at it. Customers do tend to ask, so what do you mean by self-service and what do you mean by cloud-based and it's a platform as a service? So in essence, you come to a web page, and here's the URL. This happens to be my demo account that I'm using for today. And you log in, and you get this dashboard. And this dashboard is just basically quick links to various functions. And so one of the things we do to make the service easy to consume is we handle many of the telephony elements. So we will have phone numbers available for you to grab. So when you go to create a new service, we will offer you numbers. You're welcome to port your numbers as well, but we can certainly get you a number just to get you started. And you can take those numbers and you can align them to your contact flows. So the other thing I'll show you here real quick is, when I say we can get a customer up and running in about 15 minutes from beginning to end, one of the ways we do that is the contact center comes built with a bunch of sample contact flows, and you're going to see those here. And so I'll click on this one. This is the default one. And for anybody on the line that happens to be from the contact center space, what you'll notice is if you've historically worked with a Genesys or Cisco or Avaya Technologies, this is very similar. It's a graphical-based, logic-driven flow where you kind of move from left to right, and you bring a call in, and you can set your voice for your text-to-speech, and you can start the logging of the call. You can play your prompts, and then you can move them into, press 1 to go here, 2 to go there. So it's very sort of GUI-based, if you will. It's meant to be picked up pretty quickly. And then from here, there's a whole bunch of sub-technologies we bring to bear, whether it's the Lex technologies, which are chatbots. We have the Amazon Lambda I mentioned, where we can basically, with coding and software development, dip into all your various applications that you have running within your environment. And so really, really powerful capabilities. I often get asked what the agent experience looks like, so I'm just going to show that real quick. This is the soft phone here. Here it comes. So this is the soft phone technology, and what's great about how we've implemented Amazon Connect is it's using WebRTC technology, so there's no need to load a soft client or thin or thick client to your desktops. As long as you're using Google Chrome or Firefox, you can have this capability. And as I mentioned earlier, you can have the phone answer locally, or you can send calls to a desk phone or hard phone, and then that's it. And we put ourselves in available, and we're able to take calls. So very quick capability, very functional, and powerful technologies. Set of technologies. So I'm going to pause there. We've gone about 35 minutes. At this time, I'm going to see if we have any questions that we need answered, and we can go from there. And to my team that's helping me here on the call, if you want to help them understand how to unmute themselves, or if we're going to unmute everybody now, that'd be fine.
Hi, everyone. If you could raise your hand using the webcast console, we can unmute you for your question, or you can just write your question into the question box and we'll get to it. Thank you.
Okay, and while we're waiting for people to raise their hand, I'm just going to take a look and see if we do have any specific questions in the Q&A here.
Hi, John. You're unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Mike. How you doing? My name is John Hughes. I work as a capture manager in state and local government West, and I just came upon an opportunity yesterday for a health benefit exchange. And the consulting companies you mentioned, I had two of them I recognized as possible partners for this opportunity. But as I've read through the RFP, there is an additional requirement for staffing. So one of the partners said, hey, we can do all the technology, but we're not going to do the staffing for this call center. So do we have partners that would fulfill the staffing function, or is that something we would do as Amazon?
Yeah, appreciate the question, John. So and I would also encourage you to definitely feel free to grab me offline, and we can go into more detail. But I'll give you kind of a high-level answer, and then we can kind of go into more detail. So we do not at Amazon, at AWS and Amazon parent company, we do not have an offer that effectively provides for the human resources that are used in contact centers. What I will tell you is that that's a business, right? That is a business that does exist. I could help you find the names sort of offline, but in essence, there are companies out there that will they'll offer the technology, they'll offer the technology and the people. So it depends on what you're looking for specifically, but there will be companies out there that are willing to basically offer a red badge or outsourced contact center set of agents and human capital to bring to bear. Okay.
Great, thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Next, we have a question from Jagjit. He asks, can you please talk about some public sector case studies with any insights to the benefits these customers have achieved so far?
Okay, so a couple things. I'll try to address it sort of at the benefits level first, and then get into some specifics. So from a benefits perspective, we see a couple of things typically. One is on the financial side. So where customers were contemplating new technology spend, typically from a capital perspective, so large capital spend every 5 or 8 years to refresh technology. There's pretty dramatic savings there, right? Because in essence, the only upfront one-time spend that's required to move into an Amazon Connect is more the development of the contact center flows, and there certainly are costs associated with that. And then we move them into an operating model. So from a financial perspective, holistically, we see that across the board. The next benefit I see is the ability, so that automation I mentioned, that ability to move from 100% of your calls go to agents to be served, and we're going to take a subset of those. Typically it can start out as a very small percentage, maybe 10, 20%. It can get as high as 30 and 40% of all calls, where we can take an interaction and script it into the technologies and deliver it as a very elegant natural language and automated experience. That's a huge benefit. So I have in public sector, we have some of our customers who just cannot staff to the levels they probably need to in order to handle the amount of calls they're taking. So in those organizations, the benefit we're seeing pretty much immediately once the automation is created is that the service levels come back into line. So every organization may have differing opinions and baselines for what a service level should be. And by the way, for those on the line who don't know, service level is how long does it take for you to get to an agent. And everyone, again, as a consumer here has had experience, right? You wait for a minute, that's probably not so bad. You wait for 5 minutes, that's okay. Some of our organizations, unfortunately, have 10, 15, 20-minute wait times before you can connect with an agent. So in those environments, one of the benefits we create with automation is simply taking a portion of the calls out of out of the agent workload because we're self-serving and automating them, and ultimately allowing the agents to focus on critical high-end problems that need to be addressed. And so you kind of asked about a customer in the UK and a use case. So probably not at liberty to give the customer name, but what I can tell you is we have 2 states in the United States that are deploying and evaluating an unemployment application. So basically you call into the contact center and you renew your unemployment benefits to the automated system because there's certain requirements, right, to check in and make sure, are you still unemployed, for example? Have you, looked for a job this week? There's, so once you meet those requirements, you're qualified to continue to receive benefits. And so that would be a use case where historically an agent answered that call and had to type in that information to the data system, and now we've automated that, and it's brought the calls that had to be treated by agents down rather significantly. And so that's a good example of creating a benefit to the organization by bringing the service levels down. And I'm trying to think if there's others I'd point out. So, certainly the financial implications, the better customer experience in terms of service level wait times, and then probably as well just the individuals who are calling in that just need to check in, get that quick experience, and then get to exit the system. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for the business and the mission, and it's a win for the individuals who have to call in. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Next question comes from Nick O'Day. He asks, can you walk through setting up a simple contact flow to show the logic and capabilities? Do you just drag and drop or add code?
Yeah, I'll gladly show that real quick. So for those that are still looking at my screen, what I will do, and I apologize, I have this webinar window kind of in the way, so I got to see if I can move it here. One sec. So I can create. Contact flows, create a new flow. So this is a blank, clean slate. This is a new flow. I'll give it a name real quick here. We'll call it my test flow. And what you do is there's all these building blocks that you see here below. So I can create a flow where I play a prompt. So I bring that out first. Maybe then I want to get customer input, and then just to keep it simple, I can set the queues before I place the call in a queue. What I'm going to do last here, just to complete the flow, though, is I'm just going to go ahead and then we'll hang up. Not an overly exciting flow, but it's one that'll make the point. So in our play prompts, you can either use pre-recorded WAV files, or we bring our text-to-speech technology into the tool here, and you can just say, hello, welcome to my prompt. I'll save that real quick. And then over here, you can do things like, please press 1 or 2. And then these would create additional flows down below. One thing I'll note is you just add your conditions. So, I have a 1 here. 2. Save that. And so what you do is once you create the logic, you just sort of connect the dots, right? So this goes there, and then we'll have this come here. And then just for the sake of simplicity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have this flow just terminate, because we're normally doing this really quickly. But all right, so for demo purposes, this works. Obviously, this is not necessarily something you'd probably actually build. But then once it's built, you can save and publish it. And it'll tell you, this is a good demonstration, right? It's going to tell you if I have any errors. So it looks like I have an error. quick look at that. And that's my error. Well, let me go to a terminate. That's fine. So you would get an error. You'd see kind of what would happen there, right? But in this case, I'll just do it this way just to show that it works. Save and publish. You can just save your flows, in which case they're not going to go into production into the contact center, or you can just save and publish them, and when you publish them, they become live immediately. So to answer the question, really simple sort of drag and drop. Now, there is an element of coding here, and I just want to call it out because it was asked in the question. So we could bring in these Lambda functions. So it's an ability to introduce this. So maybe we're going to go collect data from the customer and put it into an application, or maybe we're going to go out to a database and application and bring data back to the contact center. And in this scenario, you'll see that you can sort of insert this block, and then you call your Amazon functions right here and bring those, bring that interaction to the table. So that's kind of how the call blocks and call flows work. Thank you for the question.
All right, Mick, we have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Next question. How many contact center instances may we have? What defines an instance?
All right, that's a pretty good question. So here's how it works, and I'm just going to show you sort of from my screen, Amazon Connect. So we can have, and I have Jason sitting with me, my solutions architect. So I believe we can have 5 by default. Soft limit? Soft limits, yeah. So to answer the question, we soft limit to 5, and the reason we do a soft limit is just so people don't accidentally have so many instances and then get a big bill and wonder why. So we soft limit 5, but in theory, because this is delivered from the cloud, arguably it's unlimited. It really is. So here you see my instances. I have, I've created a disaster example. I have demo. You can see 4 or 5 of them. You're typically going to create an instance either at the enterprise level, or if you're a large enough organization, you may have multiple instances. You may have, I'm kind of making this up as we go, but maybe you have an instance where it's your internal IT services desk, but then you have your customer-facing contact center. So you would logically sort of break them out into different instance types. But we soft limit 5. You'll see that if you actually use the service, we put soft limits in just so that you don't go and use so much capacity by accident. But those are easily removed just by putting a request in our ticketing system. Okay, thank you for the question.
All right, and last question. Can you add data to this platform from multiple agencies for greater agent context? And how do you see machine learning and AI being incorporated over time?
So to answer the first question, yes, unequivocally, that data integration is something we do really well with Amazon Connect. And having come from the contact center market, and I'll say environment over the last couple decades, this historically has been a challenge for contact center technologies to integrate into other data systems. So we do this really well here. We do it because we have the ability to call the Lambda instances. So just the secret sauce is having that Lambda function and the ability to bring, build a piece of code and go out and dip into platforms and bring the information back. In essence, if you have any application in your environment that is it either has open APIs or has a web services interface, odds are we can data dip into that platform and bring that data into the contact center. There's some rare exceptions where integrating with data systems is a challenge. They're typically going to be sort of older mainframe environments that don't have newer API interfaces. But assuming your application has an interface that we can integrate with and to, odds are we'll be able to bring the data in and out. What was the second part of that question? I just want to make sure I capture that.
Yeah, no problem. The second part was, how do you see machine learning and AI being incorporated over time?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a big piece of the puzzle. I think that what we're seeing is I mean, we're seeing today so I mentioned our Lex chatbots, which is another service, but what we do is we move away from press 1 to go here and 2 to go there, the kind of old-fashioned IVR, and we introduce a new natural language experience. So, for example, the next-gen contact center, when someone calls, you shouldn't be asked, press 1 to go to password recovery and 2 to go to, email support. You should hear something to the effect of, hello, welcome to the IT Services Help Desk. How can I help you today? For example, you can ask me to reset your password. And then we create a natural language interaction back and forth. That's using artificial intelligence, chatbot technologies. I think on the machine learning side, it's interesting because obviously we're in our infancy of those technologies. But where I am seeing a use case is, and this is a great one for contact centers. So historically, our organizations like to do surveys on customers, and they'll do like a post-call survey. And the problem with that is you typically get poor response rates. You might get 5 or 10% of the folks that actually call in to respond. So what if we could take 100% of all your calls that come in, and we've recorded them for call recording purposes, and we run those through a couple additional technologies. We run those through a transcribe, which moves the audio to a text file. And then we have some additional analytics engines. One of them is called Comprehend, where I can look at all the conversation that happened both directions. I can understand top phrases my customers said. I can understand the top phrases my agents said back. So that informs me as to what kind of conversations are having in the contact center. And then the other thing we can do is a sentiment and tone analysis with Comprehend to determine are the calls positive, negative, or neutral. And so that kind of gives you your quick bingo score of how are we doing? Are we answering our customers' questions? And what I love about this technology is you basically can survey 100% of your calls, and it's not intrusive. You're not asking the customer to do anything more. You're simply analyzing the calls that you've already been taking. So that's a good example probably of where AI and machine learning are going to become more valuable, I should say, in an environment like the contact center. Okay, thank you for that question.
We have one more attendee who is ready to ask a question. Tracy, you're unmuted whenever you're ready.
Hi, Tracy. Hi, Tracy, are you there? We can't hear you yet.
Oh, yes. I apologize. I was just wondering, you said that if your applications have open APIs and something else, then more than likely you can have the integration. And I wanted to write down what was that something else, if you remember?
Web services.
Okay.
So what that is, Tracy, is, I mean, basically, if you can get to if there's a website that gets to that application, then that tells me we can probably get data from that application.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet. And to contrast that, if what you're logging into is, let's say, a mainframe terminal, that's maybe a good indication where we may struggle to get the information. So that helps customers typically understand, what we're talking about there. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I suspect we may have gotten through them all. I'll say, I'm hearing there's maybe one more.
Well, I don't know if we have time. If we still have some time, there's some on here. There was one about consuming services like SNS and SQS for outside of Lambda, so that it's not bound by the timeout value. And what I would say, I believe it was Chris who was asking this, is that while we may not currently have it today, our roadmap is driven by you. So we'd really love to get feedback, and if that's something that's important to the business, it's important to us. So we'd love to hear more about your requirements around that.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Well, let's do this. I think we're kind of at the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We appreciate you so very much taking the time to be with us today. As a closing set of statements, I'll say that you should be receiving a survey. And again, that feedback is tremendously valuable to us. It drives our agenda and our future events, and lets me know if we need to be changing the content we share and some of the stories we share here. The next month AWS Public Sector webinar will be regarding our marketplace capabilities, so stay tuned for that. And we appreciate everyone joining. We'll let you go now, and everyone have a great day. Thank you.